I feel like this was the necessary sound over sound bowls. Oh, look at how we fall apart. Not late at all, but right on time. Never a missed opportunity. It's like a carousel. Oh my gosh, that felt good. What a heavy week. What a heavy, interesting, wild, wild week. Weekend, even. And now a new moon in Taurus. That genuinely, it was just kind of like wild and wiry, and I didn't really want to tap into it. And I had some other stuff going on. But actually, taking a look at the chart when the moon was at its peak kind of makes sense. It's funny how even if you maybe don't think you're ritualizing, we do fall into these waves. And I think that might actually come up. Um, let's see. There was that major and clear conjunction with Saturn, Venus, and Mars. What a beautiful sight. Like something out of a painting, honestly. Whose relationship I also touched on last time, as it was upcoming in the last video. So check that out because it's not that long. It's not that hard. And so what a wild ride this weekend was, I'm sure. What's up? What's up? How are you? Let's see. The Pope died. There's already, as if there weren't enough cults, there's already many on their own rise to power. A star went supernova. So that wasn't the only thing either. And the storms abound seemingly relentlessly, but the sun still sets. The sun still sets and rises. So what's next? When the earth is shaking and everything is. Mars and Jupiter, I think, carry some heavy weight with us, like a hostile takeover. And I wish I had better words for that, but that was what came through. Neptune also heavy hit. And I think that very much has to do with influence and subconscious. And even if you think that you yourself are not being influenced, you couldn't possibly be. That's funny. Uh, but also the ways in which we influence ourselves. And the ways our subconscious and our memory influence ourselves. This is also the general point of PTSD and CPTSD in specific, because those triggers are not necessarily always easily identifiable. Mercury also in Taurus, I think, is a lot of throat chakra strain, muscle strain, thyroid strain, lymph collection there, sore throat, sore muscles. I think we're just carrying a lot of weight and in poor posture. And oftentimes, inserting ourselves into things when we still have weight behind us, sort of dragging us back, and that forces a lot of uncomfortable overcompensation. And that's not something that we should necessarily have to do. That also has to do with immunity and digestion and the ways in which we suppress even in that, which again ties into the subconscious. Do you see what I'm getting at? And Taurus is an earth sign, so it's interesting that subconscious has so much to do with any of this. But it is when it starts to show in literal signs. I think we're very much seeing the weight of patterns in the last, I don't know, few weeks. I mean, granted, years really. As timelines collide, as timelines compound, etc. Hello, 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 welcome. Thank you for being here. Oh my gosh. In general, yeah, the energy for that new moon just felt like vibrating. Like I felt like technology around me was vibrating and vibrating so much that I could feel it uncomfortably in my hands. It's not fun in my bones. Mars and Pluto opposition is honestly, it's kind of like these characters of like the chill versus desperate to prove. And I don't necessarily even mean chill as like a good thing, like too chill. Like people can be too chill and just kind of like disregarding or dismissive. Um, and when you're stuck in either way, moving from pain as virtue or ignorance as some kind of bliss, um, both are illusions of control. And in fact, neither are that different. They are, in fact, mirrors of themselves. Um, and so it keeps that energy taut in that pattern. Let's see. Considering the sun, moon, and Chiron in the same house, I think that will have a lot to do with perceptions of identity, specifically through expectation and value. What we value ourselves at, what we expect that value to look like or equate, really. Um, and where we attribute value to those tangible identity factors. It is a slippery slope. And you can in fact hyper correct from nobody to such a somebody that your head weighs too much. Or vice versa. I don't necessarily have enough experience with headless meditation, but I feel like I've done enough that I am not interested in that kind of meditation. It was designed by a Westerner in the 60s anyway. But it was interesting to find out that it's real. Da, 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 da. Interestingly enough, this Gemini and Jupiter to Saturn shenanigans. God, I love the way that I talk instead of like square and blah 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 blah. I'm so smart. They've got relationships, and sometimes the relationships are shenanigans. And these shenanigans in specific are telling me that there's an aloofness, maybe. Again, ignorance is bliss, maybe too much so. And that may be hard to realize for such an intellectual sign. But there isn't an aloofness, maybe where Switzerland comes to bite you in the ass. Like separate from, but as in better than. Because I know I've very much latched on to this idea of like in the world, but not of it. I've read of it in paintings and in yogic texts. But that means you aren't better than the situation. That just means you're like a fly on the wall, like outside of time and space, which means you can look at it without judgment. That you can look at it from many perspectives and lacks judgment. And that's an integral difference in those two states of being within the Gemini fractal or scale, I suppose. So with that aloofness, does that come from your being separate then but responsible to? Does that come with your separate from and non-judgmental acceptance and openness and awareness? Or does that exist in separate from aloofness and separate from as if you are better than, as if you are higher than? And there's a lot of that, I think, existing in spiritual community and in tarot community and in meditation community and what have you, of hierarchy, of rebranded fascism, of rebranded supremacy, um, and utmost of hierarchy. And then it's just that that's the most literal way we have to describe those things. Like you draw a circle and it is a circle. It's in a two-dimensional space. However, that circle exists in many dimensions. That two-dimensional depiction is limited in its explanation. So when we have these pyramids or levels of hierarchies of vibrations, it's not that it exists in a hierarchy, it's that it exists in a cyclical harmonic. And when we strip it to a two-dimensional linear state, hierarchical state, we like absolve ourselves of responsibility, and that's not good. But that's not what I was gonna say. We like dissolve the antidote, um, so that it is no good anymore. Like we withhold the counter, like the very counterpart to these things. Like we withhold resolve, um, when we are unable to allow those things to reach a harmonious balance or to come back full circle, or when we fail to see it that way. Even in a binary perspective, of any one thing, we can see that a lot of times they are mirror reflections of the other, or that hypercorrection leads them to be much like the other. I think a very easy way for us to digest that kind of information is the ways in which we see left and right parties sort of exist in the same evils or exist in the same negative light. Um, there was hypercorrection to one side or the other that ultimately brought it right back around. Fucking momentum. Um, it's not even like Jungian psychology and all of these things, but it is. But it's also just physics. It's also color theory. It's also a cycle of harmonies. It's also the medicine. And now there's a million different forms of it because a lot of us are tapping the fuck in. Let's see what else while I rambled. Jesus. There's no sense in waiting, in indecision, or anticipating a change. That is also something that I found very pertinent for Gemini or for Jupiter. For Gemini and Jupiter influences, wherever that is in your space. Venus, Saturn, and the North Node all have Pisces energy. Um, this North Node Pisces, I think, very much is lending itself, especially with this little triathlon of energy, of beautiful energy, lending itself to our alignment, lending itself to, these glimmers of hope, lending itself to understanding those glimmers of hope and disseminating resources, but also disseminating emotions. That's where we turn to ourselves and allow the water to distill so the muck can come up and recognize its need and share in its value. And that is also recognizing your anger, recognizing your sadness, recognizing your grief, recognizing what they look like, sound like, feel like, where they are. And show them some light, like show them some love, show them some compassion, show them some non-judgment. You're not better than them. And when you can look at yourself that way, you're more likely to be able to look at other people that way. But take it or leave it. Venus, Saturn, True North is beckoning toward where we want to be, ultimately. So consider those glimmers, and turn toward them and recognize that stillness and understand the nuances of activating these things. So we're going to pull some cards. Even though I've already talked quite a bit, but it's okay. I believe in your attention spans. We're all working on something, ain't it? I love this. Okay. We've got plenty. Plenty. Much like we are hanging out. And now that we can tap into the wave, or at least I can, take a deep breath in. We take 3 deep breaths together. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale calmly and slowly, like a whistle through your lips. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Take a deep breath in and exhale. Interesting. It's a lot of overstimulation. It tickles. But I think it's occurring in such a way because it is to make so clear that anxiety and excitement feel very similar. It's quite a bit. Um, they do. They feel very similar. And some would even suggest that it's a matter of focusing those feelings and channeling them into where you want them to be. I've heard the expression, butterflies in your stomach, but get them to fly in sync and in formation. Rapid heart rate. Recognize it. Understand the heart's pumping. But more of your awareness to that can also help you still it, help you slow it, help you pump blood more efficiently. Um, and get control of it, which is actually a very like filling, embodying feeling. Um, which is ironic considering how you feel like you're gonna die when you're having a panic attack, or a heart attack. Mm. Mm. I love this. I love this so much. Um, Jack of Diamonds, 7 of Clubs, Ace of Clubs, 4 of Hearts, and gosh, my mind's just racing to this, and okay. This 4 of Hearts and this burnt fucking orange, this like beautiful burnt, like real character filled orange. It's like having been scorched by the sun, having stood too close to the fire, I suppose, singed, having touched the furnace or like touched the flame and also lived to tell the tale. Um, it's a humble color, which I love because there's a lot of, as much as people are like, yellow aura makes or like is my healing aura. It often just reeks like pungent, like pussy, like like putrid and like infectious. Um, and that's not to say all of them. I think that there's again shades of all of these colors that sort of express extremes of the nature of that color. I think blue particularly has a very expansive uh aspect to it because of that. Um, but so this is a very sweet, very comforting color. Um, and I thought it was the 4 of spades, which would be very attuned to a 4 of swords, which is very much this alchemical sacred space, in my eyes. Um, but also in the ways that we conjure it and what have you. I don't know. Other people interpret things differently. But this 4 of Hearts is reiterating that space in aura. in boundaries unseen, in things that we don't have to see to believe, in the ways people believe that their house is spirit, in the ways people believe in even spring cleaning, in cleansing the house and renewing the spirit, and in the ways people do cleanse their house um intently for freshening the spirit, and relieving ills or ill energies. um Misunderstanding, burning sage tends to stir up shit too for households of a lot of people, because it you can't just like all the bad away. That's not how it works. It stirs up the dust to then be swept away, to then be dealt with and swept away, in the same way that it actually literally eats bacteria or attracts bacteria. Catches. That's what I'm looking for. So many words running through my head right now. Um, and so this is very much like, yes, your home, cool, four walls, awesome. I hope you like the color of them. But close your eyes in your safe space where you are super safe to be able to do that. Um, what is it about that space that makes it feel so? Um, and if not, what do you fill that space with to make it feel so? In a maybe less detrimental perspective, consider it like blank slate, new home. What would we do to cleanse it? Um, there's lots and lots of beautiful ways. And people have their patterns. People put up their art first, or unpack their favorite teacups first, or whatever it is. Those are ways in which we ritualize safety in our space. And it has less to do with four walls and more to do with your energy. And that is, again, what did I say about value and expectation? Value and expectation with Chiron in the same house as something or other. I don't remember. Go back. Um, we have greens and blues and like a turquoisey emerald, like a submerged deep emerald. Um, It's not off in the distance. It's objects in mirror much closer than they appear. Objects even submerged, buried in you, whether that be, something you don't think you're capable of, or something that you're afraid to rekindle. Um, it is in you. Just because it's in you doesn't mean that it's under so many layers you'll never be able to get to it. In fact, you'd be surprised what just a little pebble can do to disturb the muck in the water. Um, and in that, it's like this gorgeous, rich, like Gatsby green. It's very regal. And that's wealth of experience, that's wealth of enjoyment, that's wealth of presence, which is neither aloofness, chill, ignorance is bliss, or pain as virtue, rage, and revenge. Do you see what I mean? That spectrum just exists in this back and forth nonsense. It becomes one another, but we get to this tertiary perspective of that kind of wealth, of this Jack of Diamonds and its gratitude, and its will to live life. It's not just the party guy. It's not just the happy-go-lucky. It's not just the fun, spend it because I have it, spend money to make money, dude. None of that. It's the wealth of willingness to live, like the wealth of will. People can have all the money in the world, but not a single bit of integrity or will. So, how do we become the latter? Seven of clubs, ace of clubs. I love these blues, but these are your clubs, so they're like fiery. In which case we're moving water. In which case, seven is enough to share. I mean, you don't need much to have enough to share, but these odd numbers are often about that wave or irrigation reaching something else, nurturing something else. What did I say about disseminating disseminating emotions, oftentimes diagnosing things like it's kind of in an opposite point. physically or what have you, bone structure wise, muscle wise, nerves and their interesting ties to things. Um, because the Seven of Wands is also like, or the Seven of Clubs, Seven of Wands is also like too much of an offering, and when people are trying to take too much from you. But this is way more about giving, and this is way more about giving attention to what is needed in the body or what is needed in your own pursuits, um, to to allow them compassion, allow them some breathing room, allow them acknowledgement and relief, what have you. Um, Allow these things to get done, whatever it is. Um, which is much more about giving than taking, which is much more like same deal but very different perspective. It's much more about like even like if you clean out your closet and give away, donate a lot, like that kind of energy. It's finding you have enough, you have plenty, and still being able to give back. And considering the state of the world, that sounds really hard, and maybe angering and impossible to some. However, that is a resentful frequency. That is not a bad thing. That's understandable. It's not a low frequency, as in hierarchy or less than, which is also where we get stuck in that mentality. But if you close your eyes in the spirit of that feeling, what is that feeling really asking for? On what are the needs of that feeling truly? Um, Outside of just what is, what does it feel like? What occurs in the mind? What sensations occur about it? A lot of times it has a lot less to do with the tangible thing. This is why people in midlife crisis buy fancy cars, or why miserable old rich men shoot penis-shaped rockets into space with beautiful women that I'm sure would never sleep with them. I mean, go women, but I don't really subscribe to any of them. Uh, Ace of Wands is very much that supreme offering. I feel like if this is a tall order, it's like, but what? But how? But I don't know. It's very much just who you are, what you know, the resources that you have. Um, in fact, rather than what other resources do you need, or what other steps need to be taken? Take a step back and understand it for um, what you can make with what you already have, or what you can disseminate with what you already have. Making an outfit out of what you already have. Um, Making food with the ingredients that you already have. Um, Understanding that there is value and there is wealth simply in presence, simply in being. Um, and that in and of itself uh, is fertile ground for reciprocity because you are present. So you are interacting, you are living with great will in the world as it is. And that allows the space to expand, which is why this is such a wishful card. In which case, these are growing things, which is why their colors have such depth. Um, all beautiful things, all super beautiful things. I will say that's a lot of grounding, even this humbleness, is home in the body, is grounding through hard times, is grounding through emotions, is understanding, the body and that space, and making peace in your mind as a source of prosperity and wealth and abundance, and something that can be a giving resource for you. Perhaps that is a first step in figuring out these resource wars, um, and what have you, and lackings that occur, um, in in dealing with too much or not enough in the body. Beyond grounding, we're speaking to water, to our cellular memory and plasma, and synovial fluid and all kinds of things. Um, in which case, be mindful of meditations that leave you out of body, um, and dive into uh, traditional Ujjayi breathing to really move water's currents in the body. Um, I do actually have resources for that. I'm not just being a weirdo. Um, there is a couple of yoga classes on my YouTube that um, pick one. They all have elements that they're attributed to for sure. I think the water is the third or the second, the third. I don't know. It's hard to picture it in my mind right now. Um, but I love this shit, and I love my elementals and repeating patterns and symbols and magic and biochemistry. Um, and if you go to my website, I also just made a fun little ebook breaking down different elements and kinds of breath so that it's super easy and super discernible and attainable for you to be able to understand what's going on, um, to take it with you to other sessions, classes, what have you, um, and to have ample research to go on your own path, and to know what the F you're talking about when you're in a setting where you're maybe doing a meditation that's not making you feel great, or when you're in a setting that you need to be able to take control and power back and utilize your knowledge of your body and your breath to be able to mitigate circumstances. It is going to be very necessary. This moon was weird, but things are only going to get weirder. So please make this space as welcoming to you as you can, um, and make it an energy that you give so much that it wants to give back. With that, peace out. Um, love you. Thanks for being here. Uh, and I hope that you are rocking it. I hope that you are. I hope that you are feeling very clear in what it is that you want and where you want to be. And if you are not, I hope that at least now you know that there are other people that understand and that are trying to create resources so that you can better know yourself in those circumstances. Because it's a crazy world and we're constantly being, pulled in one angle or the other. Um, so, oh my gosh, these comments are hilarious. Party.